everybody. Welcome to Preparing for Year-End. I am Alisha Rocks, and I have been at Greenshades since December of 2012. I'm the product manager here, and I'm going to walk you through a few steps to prepare you for year-end. So you may be asking, how do you get year-end data into year-end forms? Well, if you've used our website before, you may be familiar with some Greenshades tools such as the Tax Filing Center. It's an on-premise product that is installed directly onto your computer and sends data from your ERP, in most cases Dynamics GP. We have a few others, but sends that data directly from your ERP over to year-end forms. We also have our online version of that tool, the Greenshades Online Tax Filing Center, as well as the payroll tax service that some of you may be familiar with. And then we also have our own payroll platform now that sends data over to year-end forms as well. If you are not a part of our existing Greenshades offerings, you can also import information into the year-end forms website using an Excel template, or there may be some integrations available for your particular ERP if you check in with our sales team. There are two methods for this data collection. You can integrate directly from an accounting package, as I mentioned in the previous slide. We have our sync portal, our connector product, and we also offer a couple of different types of integrations through those means. We also have our template. There's a different type of template available for each specific form type. So if you're going to do 1099s through us, you're going to do 1095s. You will want to create a specific template for those form types in order to create the appropriate form set. So let's walk through the steps necessary to have a successful time in year-end forms. Step one is going to be setting up your company information. This is where admins confirm how many employees they're going to have, what types of forms they're going to be using. There's also an option to set up some payment forms for your year-end forms going forward last year and this year. And there is also an opportunity to verify the information that's coming over to us, such as your state account numbers that are going to be necessary on your tax returns. Once you get through the setup, we recommend, but it is not required, verifying your employee's identity. This is an optional service that we offer here at Greenshades, but we highly recommend it for year-end use because it helps to prevent potential penalties by verifying this information ahead of time. It's pretty simple. You just click the button to start verification. Our site is going to go out and search this information through our means and send that information back to you to tell you which Social Security numbers may not match up with the records for the SSA. And that's the Social Security Administration. And then that gives you an opportunity to look into those Social Security numbers with your employee, figure out whether there may be a mismatch of names, somebody updated a Social Security card but not their driver's license. There's a lot of different scenarios where there could be a mismatch, but this gives you an opportunity to prepare for those scenarios before you get ready to file. Once you've verified that information, you can move on to the next step. Step 3 is resolving warnings. This here is just a small example of what a warnings page might look like to a user. This particular page of warnings is letting them know that there's some Social Security numbers that have come back as a mismatch, and that they may also have an entry for the same, 2 entries for the same employee that they want to look into before submitting. Once you've made it through that, you want to verify your totals. This is a very important and required step. This is where you're going to validate the information from your ERP, whether it's Greenshades payroll or an outside payroll source, and verify that against the totals that we're showing here, because these are the totals that are going to get filed. So if you see anything here that doesn't match your expectations, this is the time to start looking into it. If everything here matches your expectation, which is our hope and dream, you can check that box there down at the bottom that says I've reviewed my totals on this screen and I verify that they are correct. Once that box is checked, you can hit finish, and that'll give you a green check mark on the checklist homepage so that you can feel peace of mind that you have finished this step. Steps 5 through 7 all have to do with getting these forms to your employees. So once you've verified all this information, everything looks correct, you've checked and balanced and checked it twice, you can come back here and turn these forms on for your employees, and that gives them access to these forms electronically, saves you some postage at the end of the year if people don't want a paper copy. And then you can also come in here and send emails out to your employees, letting them know that those forms are available, and it will send them a link basically to their Green Employee account where they can get access to that form. If you find that you still need to distribute some forms, which a lot of people do, we give you a couple different ways to do that here. The first step in 7A, you can ask us to mail those remaining W-2 forms. If there's some people at your organization who have not downloaded a copy of their W-2 electronically, they are still obligated to get a copy of their form so that they can file their own taxes. And so that's a way that you can provide that to them is by mailing out those forms. You can also print and mail these forms yourself. You could create a mail batch here, download a copy of those, and then print and distribute those within your own office if necessary. So let's say that you don't have a lot of time and resources to distribute those forms. That's something that Greenshades is also here to help with. Once you've made it through the mail process, next you need to get your e-files sent off. There's a few different steps to e-files. You have your state e-files, which we currently do not offer any types of corrections for, but you can file through us. That will be in step 8. Once you get into step 9 and 10, these are going to be for federal and local e-files. Locals is something that we've recently started offering last year and this year. And so I hope that if that's something that you need to submit this year, that you'll take a look at Greenshades to help you get that done. So what are some common things that you may run into that you can prevent leading up to year end to make it more successful for you? Well, one thing is if you are a client that uses our Excel templates to get data into the workspace or form set, there are a few things that we would recommend. These Excel templates are meant to be a template, and so we ask that you not change the headers, change any formatting, don't add or remove columns. These Excel templates are provided to you as a form to fill in with the necessary information that our system is looking for in order to populate your e-returns and also your recipient copy forms for your employees and vendors. So in order to get that information correct, we need it in a specific format. We also try to fill in little notes on that template so that you have an idea of what it is we're looking for if there's a particular request for a column. Another common concern that you might see is zero state wage or tax. That is a common error that comes up at Greenshades because it's something that we flag for, because when you have zero but you're filling out a form, that can often be cause for alarm. We do consider that a moderate warning, which is how we have it labeled in our year-end form system, but it is something to be mindful of. If that's something that is common for your company, then that may be something that you can overlook. Another common thing that I highly recommend doing, as I mentioned before, is verifying your social security numbers. I can't stress this enough that you will save yourself a lot of headache if you do this ahead of time instead of having to do it retroactively. And if you have not yet been provided a user ID to submit on your behalf, this gives you an opportunity to get that warning early and get that information filled in. So let's talk about 1099s. 1099 forms. So Greenshades payroll clients, when they get ready to do 1099s, they're going to need to fill out an Excel template to get that data into our year-end form system. 1099s is not something that we offer to our payroll clients at this time. And as I mentioned before, each 1099 form type is going to require its own Excel sheet. For non-Greenshades clients, you'll also have kind of a similar experience in most cases. We do offer the Excel template to our non-Greenshades users as well. But we also have a sync integration for our GP clients to pull that 1099 data over from GP into year-end forms. What about ACA? There's a lot of things to know about benefits, especially when it comes to ACA returns. Here's a few little tips and tricks that we've kind of pulled together. But depending on your situation and what Greenshades tools you use, we can point you in a direction to help you get to an end goal of getting your 1095Cs filed and forms out to your recipients. Now the big topic, W-2s. W-2s are definitely a big source of work for a lot of people at the end of the year. It's something that you have to get a form out to every employee, whether electronic or on paper, and you have to also get an e-file out, double check and make sure that there are no corrections that need to be needed as you go throughout the year. And sometimes, depending on the amount of voids or changes that you've had to make throughout the year, corrections that have had to be filed on 941s, this could be a very stressful time. So again, we highly recommend starting early. Use this opportunity to give yourself more time to look into things that you may run out of time for in the past, and then that will make your year end a lot less stressful. For GP clients, you can find success by syncing over data from GP directly into year-end forms using our sync portal or connector. For Greenshades, we do flag data errors when that stuff comes over. So I think that's also important to note for anybody who may be coming from an outside ERP into Greenshades, that the information that we are storing in year-end forms for your forms is going to be validated, not just if it's coming from another Greenshades source. For our tax service users, any discrepancies that will generate a file rejection, we flag those for you in the module as well. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to your concierge service rep, and they can help point you in the right direction to get that resolved. So for our clients that use GP as their ERP, there are a few extra steps that you need to walk through in order to get your information over to Greenshades. First step is going to be closing out the year in GP. It involves running the year-end wage report, and depending on your settings, once you run that report, this may be an automatic process, but once that report's run and you're ready to send data over to Greenshades, one of our sync or connector products will be able to send that data over for you. But don't worry, employees are not going to be able to access those W-2s right out of the gate. It's not actually turned on until an admin goes in there and intentionally turns them on for viewing privileges to the employees. So that gives the admins a few extra days or weeks, depending on what you might need to edit, to get everything correct before you're ready to send that out to employees. Something that's important to note, if you find that there is a discrepancy after you've closed the year, the process that you'll need to go through basically is to reopen the year, make the adjustment, close the year again, rerun that year-end wage report, and then sync that data back over. If you have any questions, you always feel free to reach out to our Greenshade support. That's what they're here for, is to help. Let's talk about some non-intuitive workflows. If you need to file correction, which let's face it, everybody is going to need to at some point in their future, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Make sure that you update the proper employee's information. That will flag that form as needing to be filed for correction, and that will handle most basic corrections needed for most people. Should you have something a little more complicated than just a basic form update that needs to be refiled, I would highly recommend reaching out to Greenshades if this isn't a process you've gone through before, to make sure that you're successful in filing that correction and you don't end up causing yourself more work. Sometimes clients try to do their best without reaching out to support, which I applaud, but they end up deleting or overwriting an entire set of forms that we need that information in order to do the correction. And that can lead to some costly development work in order to get you filed. So if ever you have a correction to be made and it's not something that's normal or standard, always feel free to reach out because we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Couple things to keep in mind. Schedule time to look over your forms. If I didn't impress that upon you enough throughout these slides, the one thing that I highly recommend is to give yourself as much time as possible. Always leave room for error. Definitely start early. The earlier in January you get your forms mailed out as well, the cheaper it can be for your pricing when you get ready to use Greenshades to mail out your forms. Also, make sure that your annual numbers match. Verify your totals against some type of report that you might get from your ERP that tells you what your end of year totals will be. And that will save you a lot of editing as well if you know what the proper totals are going to be and you've already made those updates. Also, once you get everything over to Greenshades, be on the lookout for edits that you may have needed to make but didn't. Maybe you maybe you found somebody's totals to be wrong and that reminded you of a void that you did back in first quarter, and now you need to go file a 941 correction, also get this W-2 updated. All of those things take time. So I highly recommend trying to start as early as possible. And then factor in that editing time and turnaround time for those different things into your deadlines. If you're trying to meet a particular pricing deadline, make sure you're giving yourself enough time to meet that.
And I want to thank everyone here for being a part of this incredible webinar. We know year end's right around the corner, so thanks for spending some time with us and learning how Greenshades can help. And that is all that we have time for today. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your schedule. We appreciate it. I hope everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day.